look forward to working with them more in a community partnership. So in 2022, the city came together and they drafted a climate action plan, and it's a very comprehensive plan that covers everything from water to air to green spaces. And so this park is a perfect addition to the city's plan to make the city more sustainable. And so this pollinator park is going to focus on native plants. It's going to focus on plants that are good nectar and pollen sources for our pollinators like birds, bees, and butterflies. And of course, it will be a beautiful space for us humans to enjoy as well. The difference between this and a traditional park would maybe be the intentionality that goes behind the different types of plants that we're planting within this space. We're focusing on those that are nectar and pollen sources that are most likely native to Michigan, that are going to be a good food source for our bees, our butterflies, and our birds, and other pollinators that call Royal Oak home.
Closing, I really wanted to just take another opportunity to express our gratitude to our partners in this project, CN Railway, America in Bloom, and let's not forget the bee teams, who are all critical in helping this project move forward. I'd like to take the opportunity also to mention a couple of other usability features that this park will see when it's all said and done. We'll have a bike rack set up so that bicycle riders can park and enjoy the park and keep their bikes in a safe place. We'll have a bike repair station for those incidentals. And also we had some springy bee toys that were once a feature of the library pollinator garden. They were taken out during some construction, and we're going to resurrect them, bring them back out, and they'll be a feature of the park as well. Perhaps acting as a signal for our bees as they fly by that maybe this is a friendly place to be.
e-scribe package or something. I'll have to remember this is the regular agenda. Okay.
That's the regular agenda, and if you scroll down, it's...
Yeah.
Oh, you can go up front, that's fine. Sorry, didn't mean to hold you up there. Okay.
We're divided board today.
I know.
Yeah.
Girls over here.
I just with the two space.
Guys over there.
How's it going?
Good. How are you guys?
High school dance.
The odds are good for us.
Okay, I will call to order the Wednesday, June 26, 2024, regular meeting of the Royal Oak Downtown Development Authority. At this time, we'll have public comment. Who would like to speak first? Mr. Olbert?
Good afternoon, my name is Frank Hobrecht, and I represent 408 South Washington, Green Building over on Washington. I've been here about 25 times. I've mentioned that we have a dirt alley behind our building. We still have a dirt alley behind our building. And anybody that wants to come see our collection of rats, come by in the evening. We have rats. We have big rats. We have medium rats. We have baby rats. I come here in a couple of months. Everybody's going to be moving up the food chain. I don't know what we're waiting for, but our alley needs to be paved. It's disappointing that we can't get that on the agenda and then pay for it. We paid $62,000 in property taxes last year. My neighbors, probably altogether of us, pay at least $500,000 a year. The money should be there. And I don't know why it's not being done, but for some reason, it's not being done. Let me also quickly say that in today's parking discussion, there is probably not a worse time to increase parking rates because we're vacant. As I drove over here, we had 3 cars in front of our 9 parking spaces. My people are hurting. They've all gone backwards in terms of revenue, and they are stuck. They can't leave unless they file bankruptcy and that's going to be something that's going to drag them for the next 10 years. But anybody here that has employees, it's tough. We have probably about 30, 35 employees that park in the decks. To raise the parking decks at this time is inappropriate. Our customers need that incentive still to be there. That 2 hours free is very important. It keeps our restaurants alive, even though my one restaurant was evicted last year because the parking system that we have on Washington is horrendous. And I know there's a lawsuit here to maybe relook at the impact of the parking system, but that's 2027. Right now, the parking robots are getting $2,000 a day, 6 days a week, 52 weeks a year, to make that adjustment from 3 hours to 2 hours. And that was something that was very expensive, but that's not the burden of the private sector. So please, let's not disrupt the parking system right now. It's a very delicate time, and I can't afford to lose another tenant. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harrison.
Thank you. Regarding Jay's memo to the board, it's an excellent memo. I've got some comments. The DDA should seek input from the evening businesses before restoring the $5 after 5.
Okay.
As Frank was pointing out, things are rather tenuous.
Okay.
Similarly, with the monthly fees, you have to look at who's being affected. It's the people that park all day, it's the employees. And when you affect the employees, you're affecting the employer. Somebody's got to make up the money. Also agree with the city that the city commission should work with the DDA regarding the development of the original Center Street parking structure. Rich and Associates should be retained to review the parking requirement of the current structure configuration before issuing an RFP. The new structure represents only 51% of the current number of parking spaces, so you'd be cutting the parking in half by getting rid of the old parking structure. The RFP should include consideration for replacement parking for any deficit demand due to demolition of the old structure and any increased demand due to the proposed new development. Demolition of the old parking structure should be the responsibility of the developer. The city already has a parking system deficit. The money is just not there to fund the demolition. The commission previously gave Ron Bogie the property, $5 million, and built a parking structure to support that was to be an office building that would generate parking revenue. Now you've got a hospital and these people are hospital clinics, and these people aren't there for more than 2 hours of the free parking. Who knows what kind of a bad deal they will enter into again. Question: was the DDA consulted regarding the proposed 11-story apartment building that is to be built at 5th and Lafayette? There wasn't anybody there from the DDA at the zoning board meeting. The zoning board of appeals, on a 5-4 vote, allowed a variance of 81 parking spaces at the Lafayette parking structure. Now this is after previously granting, a couple of years ago, a variance to Baker College for 82 parking spaces. The Lafayette parking structure is at times heavily utilized since the Baker College opened. I was there on the 12th of the month at 2:30, and there were just a handful, I'm talking about 4 or 5 parking spaces available within the deck, and there were even cars up on the upper deck. And the countdown sign is not working. If I can just have one more point here. I guess I'm questioning why you're giving John Witz $20,000 for his Taco Fest #1, which assumes there's going to be more Taco Fests. The Memorial Day Parade producer asked for $7,000 and you gave him $4,000. The parade has a significant attendance and has been a tradition in Royal Oak for as long as I can remember. WITS is operating 2 points. WITS is operating a business downtown without paying any property tax or having any formal financial investment in the downtown.
Okay, I need you to finish up, Mr. Harris, there.
Last statement, thank you. The net benefit of his activities to the downtown business is debatable. Thank you. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
the extra time.
Absolutely. Anybody else wish to address the board today? Okay, seeing none, I will close public comment. Back to the regular agenda, approval of minutes for 5/15/24 and 5/23/24. I would ask that any resolution please include, for it to include items 3A and 3B. Motion by Director Yesbick. Second by Director Vaness. Any questions for staff or comments regarding the minutes? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 4, expense items. Monthly expenses. This is for informational purposes only. Any questions? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to business. Item A, parking discussion. Mr. Twain, did you have anything to start with, or?
Well, I guess what I'll say is in the packet, there is a communication from Director Dunstan in regards to some topics that he would like to discuss with the board today. I simply attached a lot of background material that DDA had seen previously in regards to prior recommendations back in 2023 that went to the City Commission and some of the study materials that went with that. Those items did not come from Director Dunstan. Simply the discussion email page of various topics, as well as a comparison of rates to other communities. So I would yield to Director Dunstan and how he wants to go through those.
Director Dunstan.
All right, well, this is in response, a meeting we had, and it's been, I want to say it's been 6 months or longer with the ex-finance director. And at that time, she made us aware of shortage in the parking fund and shortage in the ability to complete the bond payment on the new structure on 11 Mile, for which we're responsible for half the deficit. Apparently, this has been the case with that parking deck for 2 or 3 years. It's been in deficit, but we just learned about it in this meeting with the, as I mentioned, the ex-finance director. It was her opinion at that time, and it seems to be the opinion of a lot of the staff here at City Hall, that that deficit began back in COVID when this body decided to suspend the $5 after 5 and continue with the 2 hours free and then you pay. A lot of things have happened. I know the way that the 11 Mile deck is used is there's a lot. It's, I guess the word was, it's very transient to the point where people can park there for nothing with a under 2 hour appointment to Henry Ford. But it's, my feeling is a couple things here, and this is what I want to propose, is that I think we need to go back to the $5 after 5 o'clock. And I think we need to look at bringing the permit rates up to more what makes sense, I believe, in what we're trying to accomplish here. If you look at Birmingham, if you look at Ann Arbor, not only are their rates, especially Ann Arbor, incredibly higher, but they also have different rates for different decks depending on use. And my recommendation is going to be that beyond the $5 after 5 is that we move the rate from 50 to 60 a month. And then that would be our recommendation, of course, to the city commission. We're just the parking committee. And if the city commission wants to play with, permit rates, different permit rates for different garages, then that's their prerogative, of course. But I think it's important. We're looking at $1.5 million ask from the city to help get us back in the black with the parking. And from what we're looking at, that'll get us back in the black if we pay the money today. But a year from now, we're going to be back in the same situation. We're being asked to pay $500,000 a year into the parking fund, which used to be one of the most solvent funds we had, I believe, because until the ex-finance director presented us with the parking fund details, we had never, at least since my time, 2009, had never been privy to any of the numbers involved. So, no, I don't like raising rates at all. We're not touching anything. I'm not proposing we touch anything on the street. The streets would stay the same, the 3 hours, the 15-minute grace, the fees. All I'm suggesting is that we consider, and I'm going to make this in the form of motion now, that we recommend to the city commission that we raise the rate in the lots, I'm sorry, not in the lots, in the decks to $5 after 5, and we raise the permits from 50 to 60. And that's my proposal.
I have a motion by Director Dunstan. Support. Supported by Director Dubak. Just to be clear, I just want to clarify for the group here that the daytime hours in the deck would remain.
Before 5, first 2 hours free. If you get in at 4:57, and you leave before 7, you're park free.
Okay. Just want to clarify.
Just the way, this is exactly the way it was pre-COVID, with the exception of the extra $10 for the permits. And again, this is a recommendation to the city commission.
Okay, discussion. Director.
It'd be nice to be called the director. Thank you. I don't know enough yet to be able to comment intelligently about this, other than I do know we're here in the process with an outside firm of doing an analysis of what's owed, what isn't owed for that, for the different structures, etc. I don't know that if the concept is, again, I don't know enough about this to be able to vote intelligently about this, but no question that the fund needs to be made whole. If the concept is just that's the way it was before COVID and we were okay, I don't know that anybody in finance from the city has taken a close look at this to see, and I don't want to delay anything. I'm certain that if this were to pass, the commission would ask finance staff to take a close look at this, see what makes sense, what doesn't. If 5 for 5 is a neat concept or a neat I don't know if that does it in terms of what we need to raise rates for or not, but I'm sure the commission will, if this proceeds, I'm sure our recommendation to the commission will be that finance give us some answers on this to see what makes sense. But short-term plug in a hole or going back to what is now a well that money is not going enough down to bail us out is probably a good idea. So that's all
Thank you.
I want to say.
So
Director Ronstein.
my comments are basically to second that that it's important to understand what we would gain through this change. And if that happens after our recommendation, but prior to the city commission's discussion about it, that's fine. But I believe that we need to know whether or not it is the salve that we hope it will be. Because if it's not, then we need to make all the changes at once in order to make up the revenue deficit.
Right, makes sense. Director DeBuck.
Yeah, I think it's a good starting point, given that it's a system we had in place before. It worked. We know that visitors to the downtown were satisfied with, the flat payment. It was used regularly, so I think restoring that is a good place to start. Ideally, it is revenue positive. I know we have some rough back of a napkin dollars on it, but a true understanding would be more helpful. The one thing that concerns me is the library after 5. And our folks are gonna have to pay $5 to go to the library after 5. Most nights, Farmers Lot has open parking, but there are nights, we have truck rallies and things out there, food truck rallies, where that won't be accessible. So I think that's something that we need to consider, the City Commission needs to consider, to make sure the library is still accessible to everyone in the city, even after 5 o'clock, without having a $5 surcharge to go to the library. But otherwise, I think this is a good starting point. I think raising the rates for the monthly permits makes perfect sense. We're still well below market standards. And our costs have certainly gone up, and so our fees going up to help us recoup that makes perfect sense for us to recommend to the City Commission.
Yeah, I would echo Commissioner or Director DeBuck's comments that this is really a starting point, first of all. This is not, we don't believe that this is the cure-all. The intent of I think Mr. Dunstan's motion here was based on the information we did receive from the previous finance director, who was extremely, not urgent, but extremely adamant about the fact that when the $5 after 5 policy was in place, the numbers, as she showed us on some of the graphs, were much better than what we are seeing today. Much better than what we are seeing today. So I think that was her number one recommendation to us moving forward, and I think that was the point here. So I think, I don't want to speak for Director Dunstan here, but I think this motion does get the ball moving in the correct direction. Director
One
Wall.
just thing I might add, the commission did approve on the consent agenda a year's extension for the operator of the parking structures. And one of the things we certainly want to solicit their input into the process as well. So
Good.
they might have some, as the operators, they might have some better, not numbers, but better things or suggestions that we could take into account. But I don't see a problem moving this forward, even though I don't have much information about it, and certainly not the history that members of this board have. But I certainly think that it would get the ball rolling and move on forward to having the staff review it, as well as the vendor in this case, and provide additional input to the City Commission. So,
Good, thank you. Director Johnson.
Again, just real quick, this is just a recommendation, and whether it gets a shot of vitamin B from the commission or it gets a sleeping pill, whatever, but we need to do this because we're spending money up here with legal fees, we're spending accounting fees. We still don't really know what the number is. The numbers we were presented, we had 3 different sets, we couldn't really figure this out. But this will help get the conversation rolling, I feel. So that's why I'm recommending this.
Anything else? Okay, so I have a motion on the table and a second. If there's no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? And that motion passes. Was there another part to this, or?
There's a lot of parts.
Okay. Director Dunstan. We're still on the parking discussion.
I know through the grapevine that the City Commission is talking about development in the old part of the Center Street garage. I I would like to suggest that this body offer to demo the old part of the garage, replace the demoed area with more surface parking, which would be temporary until, if and when the city commission, or our help if the city commission needs it, to find a developer. The surface lot parking would still be under park right. It would still be within those boundaries. But this body could pay for that. The money that the city is looking to use, the ARPA money, I believe, to fix the elevator, they could suck that back. We'll take care of the demo, create a surface lot, which would be temporary, but it would probably be there 2 or 3 years by the time something gets moving. But I think it just makes sense to help. That deck, as we all know, is just, it's a money pit. And we're going to put $250,000, whatever, into an elevator. Next year, who knows what we're going to do. There's concrete crumbling all over the place. It looks like hell. And I just think it needs to happen. And whether the ultimate decision might be to rebuild it, I don't know. But again, this is, again, a recommendation to the city commission. They can take it and do with it what they please. But I want to put that out there for this body to help, again, maybe get the ball rolling on something like this. So that's a motion.
Okay, I have a motion by Director Dunstan.
Second.
Second by Director Yezbik. Discussion. Director Van Staden.
Von Staden.
Bonstein, sorry.
Do we have an estimate for the cost for demo? Okay.
I think there was a number thrown around before that I don't remember what it was.
Well, I think if your recommendation goes to the commission first, I think they're going to have to indicate they're on board with the idea of tearing the structure down. And if that's the case, then we can certainly go out and get an estimate of what it is to demo the structure, as well as to rebuild a surface lot.
The parking lot, yeah.
But if they're not willing to go that route, then I think it's a waste of time to get bids and do the background work.
Okay. That's all.
Director Walden.
Yeah, just a couple things. Again, smart minds on this issue. To move things along, this is something that I have a little bit of familiarity with. And the commission has discussed this without telling tales out of school or anything, but the concept is one that they have to focus on as to whether this is a tear down. But exactly what you've suggested is what has privately occurred so far in terms of some general discussions, and more will continue, I'm sure, in terms of this. So the use of working with the DDA, once all the numbers and things work out, as a brownfield authority, there's been kicking around, and again, the previous our acting manager was involved in these discussions. He and I've shared some information, or he shared information with me to kind of bring me up to date. So I don't know that you even need to do a resolution. If it's just indicated in the minutes that's an interest, the cooperation would be there. I think that's something certainly the city commission would be in favor of, and really have talked about in the same way. And you know, I couldn't have given you a note to say that even better than you did in terms of what's going on, and whether, you know, I think there is certainly a feeling that we don't want to spend good money for a short-term fix. Use of that lot is demolition, and a use as a surface parking lot under the same operation is things that they've talked about, and I think they'd be glad to read in the minutes, whether it's a resolution or not, that this was a serious discussion that the DDA board has had and is willing to enter into a good cooperative arrangement as necessary. And knowing, of course, that It is a city facility owned by the city, and, you know, you have here for this board expertise in parking, and it affects lots of folks, etc. So I'm sure they'd be happy to learn that there's an interest in being cooperative and moving forward on getting a decision on this thing.
Thank you. Mr. Dubak.
Yeah, I think it's certainly an idea worthy of consideration. I do think there's value in a resolution just in that it's formalizing to the commission that there are at least a majority of members of this body willing to entertain it if the numbers actually make sense. I guess I'd be interested to know, you know, what does 3 years worth of maintenance look like versus the loss of parking for an additional 3 years? Because then once a developer does come in or whatever we decide to do on the property, then it's going to be another year, 2 years of that reduced parking until we restore where we're at now. So I'd like to better understand the impact of that before signing on the dotted line to incentivize it. How many spots would the loss be versus the redesigned service lot? And you know, what's the impact of that? So if there's a substantial savings, though, that allows us to invest into other DDA priorities by deferring, you know, 3 years, 4 years worth of maintenance on a clearly decaying structure, I think that could balance out that loss of parking for those years. So I'm willing to support a resolution telling the commission, you know, we're interested in exploring the concept with them.
And I would say, and you can take this back to the commission, if they wanted to meet with us to talk about this in a little bit more detail, we could do that. My unscientific investigation of that, I'm calling it 2 decks, the old and the new. The new deck, we set reserve spots, a great number of reserve spots. I don't remember, but I think only 20% of them are being used for the Etkin building. So we specifically have spots. I'd say only 20% of those being used. My opinion, all those signs could come down. I drove through it today around 1:30, and the top 3 ramps, there was nobody on those top 3 ramps. I don't know what the number is. The ramps where the Etkin parking is were probably 20% taken up by the Etkin spots. And I want to say that number is like 150 or something like that. So maybe 30 spots, maybe 40. So I think there's capacity, but it's certainly that's an unscientific observation on my part. Someone needs to do a better job. But again, like the previous motion, it's just to get the conversation going and get some talk.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Director Dunstan, and I think Parkwright, as Mr. Wallen mentioned, that I think Parkwright could add some additional information to this because they can give us a lot more detail about what spots are available during what specific times during a demo period or during a construction period, even, so we would know how much loss we're going to have during those periods of time. So I think it would be interesting to find out. I mean, I would support the motion again, similar to the previous motion, is just to keep the discussion going and move it forward and ask that the commission have a discussion potentially with us about it and just see where it goes. Director Yazbek.
Does it make sense to ask the Parkwright people to meet with maybe the infrastructure committee and generate some of that information? I would just like to see, and I think the spirit of this is movement. You know, we have discussions, we waited months and months for a traffic study that didn't help us too much. It told us that the parking is problematic here in the city. We know all that. We have to make moves. We have to move things forward as best we can. I understand things take time, but if we do intend as a city to have that developed, okay, how do we get from point A to point B? I think there are many positives to demolishing that and having a surface structure, you know, mainly because structurally we've heard for years it needs some money and just the simple thing that the elevators don't work and they haven't been working for a long time. That's not acceptable. I mean, we heard Director Leclave a couple meetings ago complain that, you know, his relative couldn't park in the structure because the elevator didn't function properly. That's unacceptable as a city. We can't continue to tolerate that. So we have to just move forward, you know, whatever ways make sense. So maybe if we need more information, let's set up a meeting with the infrastructure committee and generate some of that information so that we can make these decisions and recommendations and just, you know, continue to improve the city.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, we're going to move forward with your motion then?
Yes, please.
Okay. That being said, I will call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I'd like to abstain.
Okay. Abstention?
Since we're sending it to my bosses, the commission, and here I'm in a different capacity, I think...
Understandable.
Just as I said, this is something the commission is focusing on itself. I think the offer to cooperate and provide information is a good one, and we'll make sure that, I'm sure it will indicate that in the minutes as well as in this resolution.
Okay. Recorded? All set? Okay.
I've got more parking.
Go ahead.
Two things. I'm going to do one at a time here. In reviewing the parking study once again that was in our packet, there was a recommendation on 2nd Street by the post office for a couple handicap spots that I don't believe have been done. Now, I know those spots, I've been told, would not meet up with ADA requirements for parking on the street. The recommendation from on the parking study was there's a cutout there to put a spot on either side of the cutout. But I would like to just ask that this, and again, this can be an ask, and our liaison to the city commission can bring this forward, is just to look at that once again.
Okay.
See.
Discussion? Is that the way you want to proceed with that then?
I don't know if I need to do a motion for that. I'm just.
No, I think if you're asking, I don't know if this is something that engineering should look at, or...
I know we've talked about it before, but.
In terms of, if I heard you right, the handicap accessibility for spots?
Yeah, the parking study, the recommendation in the parking study was 2 spots on 2nd Street. And apparently at some point there's a cutout in the curb, and they suggested, here's the cutout, they suggested a spot on either side of the cutout. Right. They felt that even now with all that, the ADA parking moved to that side of the garage because of the elevator not being working, although I think it was working when they did the study, but they felt that it was too much to ask some people to park on those ADA spots and make it all the way to the post office. And that's the opinion of the parking study. That was a recommendation. I know that the city commission saw it, but I would like to ask on behalf of our body, and if we need a motion, I'll make a motion, for them to look at that again and just give it some consideration.
I don't think we need a motion for that.
For the post office?
Yes. A second right there between Center and Washington.
I don't think there's a need for a motion. I can have engineering look at it.
Okay.
Yeah, good point.
And see if it's doable.
Okay, what's next?
More parking. All right, this goes back, and all of you know how I feel about this. So we have that space in the new portion of the Center Street garage, the space that was purportedly going to be for retail, but it's not. I don't know what's in there now, probably voting machines. But I would like to make a motion asking the city commission to let the DDA take control of that space and let us try to develop, with the help of Daniel and maybe Shelley at the market, pop-up retail events for local groups. We had a situation last week, Juneteenth, where the library was being used as a cooling center, but on Juneteenth it was closed, and that was one of the hottest days. So luckily, some of the churches in the area stepped up, but it could be used as a cooling center, a warming center, and we have enough connections with churches in the downtown where if we needed to use it as a cooling center or a warming center, that we would be able to get volunteers from the 6, 7 churches that are within the downtown to staff it. But I think it would make a good community center, to make a good like southern hub for a senior center. And I would just I would like us to be able to come up with some ideas to present to the city commission. It's not our property, it belongs to the city, of how we feel that space would best be used. So I'd like to make a motion that we ask the city commission to look at the DDA possibly taking, I don't know what you want to call it, I'm not, control, it sounds like control freak, whatever, custody. That might be worse than control, but okay.
Management.
Of that space and to.
Of the commercial space in the new Center Street Day.
Exactly.
And I know the committee, and probably 4 or 5 years ago after it was built, had some discussions with the city manager at that time, and there was discussion on a management type of agreement. Obviously, if you pass the motion, we can go back and look at those documents again and see what can.
So that's a
move and what
motion. If
can't.
someone wants to second it, then I can elaborate just a little bit on what Tim just said.
I'll second it.
Motion by Director Dunstan, second by Director London.
So back at that time, the administration at that time, we talked about doing this, and it was agreed with the administration. I don't think it ever made it to the city commission. But the feeling of that particular administration is that the DDA could indeed take control of that and maybe look at some of these programs, but we would need to pay the market rate for the square footage. And he claimed the reason for that was because of the bond covenant. And this isn't true. If it was, then we wouldn't be able to be storing equipment in there. So I would really like us to have the opportunity to explore. Obviously, whatever we explore and come up with would still have to be approved by the city commission, but I would hope they would offer us this to try to come up with some uses for that space.
Okay. Anything? Okay, I mean, I think it's a great idea. I mean, it just gives, all we're asking for is the opportunity to explore what possibilities there are out there. Anything, and like you said, trying to move, anything that we want to move forward is going to go before the city commission anyway. So I don't see the harm in this. I think it's a great idea to toss around some ideas about the possibilities of the usage of that space. If there's nothing else, I'll call for the motion.
Is there a second?
Yes, Director London.
Oh, that's right. Sorry, Lori.
If there's nothing else, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion passes. Okay. One opposition. Anything else regarding the parking discussion?
Nothing
Dr.
parking.
Okay. I'm going to move on to item 5B, resolution to accept grant funds.
So recently we were approached by our folks over at Main Street Oakland County. The county has a bucket of ARPA funds still available that they are using for placemaking projects in their affiliated communities. So the first portion they went through was called RAP 2.0 last year. Obviously the plaza was nowhere near ready for that. Those ones were capped at about $10,000 each. This grant of money is looking to be somewhere around $100,000 to $250,000, and a lot will depend on the projects that get submitted. They've targeted this towards their next-gen communities, Royal Oak being one of them. The other ones being Farmington, Rochester, Ferndale. Essentially, what we need is support to apply for the grant funding. I can't just simply apply for a grant and then come back to you and say, oh, I promised you we're going to build this project. Here's this money. So essentially what we're looking for right now, I supplied a sample resolution for you, is just allowing me to go through the process of applying for this grant. I know Mr. Twing and myself are hoping that Fleece and Vandenbrink are back soon with design so we can keep pushing forward and get those underway between this body as well as the City Commission. The stipulation on this grant being that the project would need to be built before September 30th, 2026. So we have about 2 years, 3 months. Based on the last estimate of construction and the pared down designs, Fleece and Vandenbrink has consistently said probably 4 or 5 months of construction. We have plenty of time to do this. A lot depends on the designs getting finalized, but the hope is to get the designs finalized, this being the first of many grants that hopefully I can go after and we can get a portion of it funded through grant processes.
Thank you, Daniel. Any questions for Daniel?
No, I would be happy to make the motion. Do I just read this? The Royal Oak,
Okay.
yeah?
Motion and support?
I support it.
It's already been supported.
Oh,
Okay?
I didn't hear that.
Sorry,
Thank
it was
you.
quiet.
That's okay, thank you. Discussion? Seeing none, call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion passes. Okay, item number 6, Siren Communication Report. Anything to point out, Daniel?
We are in our last week of the contract and we've been working greatly. They have supplied me with a repository of all of the documents they've ever created for us. So we have a great record of our press releases over the years and something that myself and the contractor that we bring on shortly for marketing assistance can work with and potentially work with some of the same media contacts. Other than that, it's been quiet. And Siren is good to go, and good relationship still there should we need them in the future.
Okay. Mr. Twing, anything? Nope. Nothing. Board members, anything you want to bring to the table?
Daniel's not done.
Oh, you got more?
Yeah, just a big congratulations to Lori and Right Impressions receiving the American Express and Main Street America Backing Small Businesses Grant.
Awesome.
Lori, I believe, is one of 500 storefronts that won funding and can't wait to see what she does with it.
It's not that sexy, it's a new computer system, but. My computer system is Microsoft 2006, I think. It would be a huge upgrade.
Very good, very good. Anybody, anything else?
Question, have you started interviewing for your new system?
We haven't started interviewing yet. We're getting ready to post.
The answer is, you know, which July.
The effort is not to duplicate Siren with a marketing assistant at the same time because then they're just duplicitous.
Gotcha. Anything else? Director Yazbek.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Director Yazbek.
Second.
Second by Director Wallenberg. Discussion? Seeing none, call for the vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes, and we are adjourned.
Thank you. I forgot to do this for the first guy.
Oh.